गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ 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 नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। शांति शांति श्री सद्गुरुदेव की जय। त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव वन्दना मृत्युर्मुक्षीयमामृता। Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namaha. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. May peace be upon all. May peace be upon all beings. May peace be upon all beings. Om Shanti. Shanti.
Thank you so much, Risha. That was beautiful, beautiful as always, as always. We're so glad you could join us tonight.
Yeah. My humble pranams to you all.
Blessings. All right, Sadhviji, Puja Sadhviji, thank you so much for being with us tonight, of course, for your beautiful satsang. I do have a question for you if you're ready.
Of course.
It is from Karen in Amsterdam. I think we know who. She says there is so much violence going on in the USA, mass shootings and domestic terrorism and racist attacks almost every day, and young children being gunned down. How can we deal with all of this? It just seems to be getting worse and worse. How do we fix this?
Our scriptures teach us, as is the inside, so is the outside. As we experience within ourselves, so we create and manifest in the world. We are living in a time where what in Hindi we call san shakti, the ability to withstand, the ability to tolerate, the ability to move through our lives with, that ability is decreasing. We are seemingly less able, day by day, to tolerate anything. Now, of course, when we speak about other people, in the world of interfaith, we don't like the word tolerance. We usually use the word acceptance and love instead. But I'm not so much talking about that. I'm talking about the ups and downs of daily life. I'm talking about somebody who steals our parking space, or a teacher who doesn't let us do what we want to do, or gives us a bad grade on an exam, or family members who are not dancing according to our tune. That ability to move through our lives anchored and grounded in joy, in love, in peace, even as the world itself, as is the nature of the world, goes up and down, is constantly changing. We're losing that ability. We're becoming very impatient as a people. We are becoming very intolerant as a people. And so that level of violence, we'll come to specific types in a moment, but the level of violence in many ways is people acting out against those whom they feel have harmed them in some way, or who they feel are harming the world in some way. And that level of intolerance, inability to accept a world of beautiful variety, to essentially say, I only like the way roses smell, so I'm going to pluck everything out of the garden, even if it's another beautiful flower, but today I only want roses. That inability is something that we are facing. And sadly, we're inculcating it in our children. This is it's a time of everything being very, very fast, right? You want food. You no longer have to go to the grocery store, buy the food, come home, cook the food. Now you just go through a drive-through and you shout into a little box, and a little bit later, out of a window, your food comes. Now you want to buy anything. You no longer have to get in your car and go to a shopping center or a store and buy it. Now you just go onto your computer or your phone and one-stop shopping, one-click shopping. We're getting into a frame of reference of, I should be able to have what I want, when I want it, how I want it. Free returns, no questions asked, right? 30 days, 3 months, whatever it may be. And so, whether it's in a restaurant, oh, this doesn't have enough salt, or there's too much salt, take it back. Whether it's something that we've bought that arrives and we don't like it anymore. If you try to return anything on Amazon, right? You don't even have to put in a reason. It gives you 10, 15 different possible reasons to choose from, but you don't even have to. And so what it's doing is, on a consumer level, it's wonderful. It's great ease. It's great convenience. It's great in many ways as well to cut down on fossil fuel emission. We no longer need to drive everywhere. And yet, internally, it's giving us that sense of, I am entitled to what I want at the moment I want it, in exactly the way that I want it. And I'm entitled to no longer want it the minute I get it. and to be able to return it and get a new one. And that's great when it's Amazon. It's not so great when we're looking at our husbands or our wives or our children or our parents or the people in our community. People are not sweaters that we get to return because they don't fit and that get taken back with no questions asked. There is a need to be able to have this San Shakti, to be able to be okay within myself, even when things around me are not going according to exactly how I would like them to go. And we're losing that. And because we're losing it, we're not giving it to our children. And so if somebody steals my parking spot and I scream at them and I cuss them out and my kid is sitting in the car and hears that, or maybe somebody accidentally taps my bumper as they're pulling out of a parking spot and I jump out of my car and I start shouting at them. Maybe I even hit them. Maybe on the way home, I plan and plot how I'm gonna, milk every cent that I possibly can or every rupee that I possibly can from them. Well, my kids learn that. And then in school, when their teacher gives them a grade that they don't like or makes them do a homework assignment they don't like, they start plotting and planning. How are they going to get rid of that teacher? We start seeing violence. The other piece that's happening is in the media, in video games, in all of our social media and the games that come on our phone, there is so much violence. And violence has become normalized. The statistics of how many acts of violence the average teenager sees every day, between the TV they watch, the social media that they're following, it's insane. I don't remember the number, but it's a huge number. And so violence becomes normalized. Sexual violence becomes normalized with pornography so available online. Violence in sex, rape, becomes normalized. The idea that one's sexual partner is someone to hurt. The idea that no means yes, because in some pornographic fantasy, no meant yes, is creating an epidemic of sexual violence, because the women in our lives, or the men in our lives, don't act the way that the women and the men do in the pornography that people are watching online. When people say no, it means no. But if someone is watching pornography all day long where no means yes, well, they're going to have a very hard time understanding that in real life, no means no. And so all forms of violence are being normalized and are being romanticized, are being hyped. We get points in video games for the number of people we blow up or shoot down. How do we expect our children to learn nonviolence if they're spending all day getting points, winning the game for blowing people up? And so this is where the solution has to be on two levels. It has to be on the individual level, but it also has to be on the societal level. This is not simply about adjusting our inner world and the outer world will follow. Yes, it is essential that each of us commits ourselves to a practice, a spiritual practice, a practice of mindfulness that enables us to not freak out when someone steals our parking spot, that enables us to not plot and plan how to harm someone when we feel they have harmed us. How not to react in violence, violence of word, violence of volume. Violence is not only taking my hand and hitting you or taking a gun and shooting you. Our volume can be violent. Our words are violent and incite violence. So yes, we all have to recognize that each of us has the power to be part of the solution. That when each of us minimizes and eliminates violence in our own lives, then obviously violence in the world, which we are creating together, is going to be less. However, there's another component, which is really about government regulation. And of course, we are important parts of that because we are the ones who vote for not just our political leaders, but a variety of propositions and laws and things like that. And we need to be prepared to vote into effect laws that protect us. We need to stop misunderstanding the word freedom. Because what people do is they say, I don't want restrictions on gun use because we should be free. There shouldn't be restrictions on what we see on TV because we should be free, right? First Amendment gives us freedom of speech. Second Amendment, freedom to bear arms. Obviously, those are the amendments in America. Different countries have different ways, but the laws are all there. Freedom of speech, freedom to bear arms, freedom to basically do whatever I want, because we have that inviolable right to freedom. And I think there is a core problem there. Because our right to freedom does not supersede someone else's right to life. And so, yes, of course, I have autonomy over my body until my body intersects with yours. So the example that I always give in these circumstances is I have the right, for example, to take my arm and to do this with it, right? It's my arm. If I want to just exercise it by going like this, I can do that. Nobody can say to me, hey, don't do that with your arm. Until I am standing right in front of you, and every time I do this, it bops you on the nose. Well, if this bops you on the nose, then my right to do whatever I want with my arm is less than your right not to be bopped on the nose. And in the same way, our right to speak whatever we want is superseded by people's right not to be victims of crime and violence. And if what I am saying incites, provokes, or normalizes violence, then I don't think we have a right to say it. And so, it's interesting because in neighborhoods, right, you always see arguments in neighborhoods between, for example, let's say I have a tree. And the tree used to be 5 feet tall and only on my side of the fence. But now my tree is 20 feet tall. And now the branches go all over. And now the branches are coming onto your side of the fence. And then people start yelling, your tree is on my side of the fence. And getting people to trim their trees or cut trees down and take people to court. And there's all sorts of legal fights over your tree overgrowing the fence into my yard. And this is important because we all understand on some level that I am entitled only to my side of the fence, not to come over onto your side. And so if what I am doing, if what I am speaking is metaphorically coming over that fence into your freedom, well, then I don't have the right to do it. If my right to bear arms is taking your life, well, that's not a right that I have, in my opinion. And so this is where we have to really have the courage to say, hey, wait, we've got this whole freedom thing wrong. Freedom is not a license to decadence, to hedonism, to violence and harm of others. It's freedom is my opportunity to utilize this life however I would like to utilize it, right? It's like in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, life is like a field. How you use that field. So you could use that field to plant beautiful food and you could feed so many people. Or you could use that field just to, play soccer and have some enjoyment, but at the end of the day, discover that your entire field has been kicked up and there's no more dirt and there's no more grass and all of the dirt is all over the place. That's your prerogative. But what you don't have the right to do is use that field to lay bombs that when they go off, they land in your neighbor's backyard and they blow up your neighbor's house. You don't have the right to use that field as a chemical production plant of toxic waste that you spew into the air, giving all of your neighbors cancer, polluting your groundwater and your water bodies. That is not a right that we should have. And so we have to have the courage to really vote into effect and to demand new laws, new regulations, and to not be so afraid of our freedom being curtailed in some way, as though my inability to incite violence against you or my inability to own assault weapons is somehow a great fundamental disservice to you. It's what being part of a community is about. And we're all part of a global community. We're part of a global family. So the answer to the violence is on both sides. Internally, our spiritual practice, but also externally, in the demand for new laws, new ways of being that absolutely end this insanity. And so whether it's different training in certain professions, whether it's a zero tolerance policy in certain places, in certain professions, whether it's our schools, whether it's our police officers, whether it's our army, just because people are engaged in certain service does not give them the right to overstep those bounds. Just because children have a right to go to school doesn't mean they have a right to go in and kill their teachers. Doesn't mean that children who have exhibited violence and are threats of violence have a right to enter school without being checked, without their bags being checked, without their lockers being checked. Doesn't mean that kids have a right to have their mobiles with them at all times. We also, this is the last piece, we also really need to demand, I think, from the media, with whatever it may be, that which we watch on TV, that which we see on our phone, there must be some regulation. And I know that this isn't going to be popular, but we must understand we don't live in vacuums. We live as part of a community. And in that community, we have not only our rights, not only human rights, but we have human responsibilities. And we have to be as eager and as committed to the fulfillment of our responsibilities as we are to receiving the fulfillment of our rights. It's the only way.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much for that. I know it's a real problem. You watch the news now and everything else, and there's just so much going on. So we definitely need to do something. We have another question from Swamendu in West Bengal. He submitted it online to us. Why does one need to chant a specific mantra repeatedly to call upon God? Can't he make out whether someone is sincerely longing for him?
Beautiful. So let me ask you something. If someone says to you, I love you, are you able to tell whether they really mean it? Can you tell whether someone is being sincere if they say, I love you, right? We all have people in our lives who say, oh, I love you, I love you, I love you. And they don't mean it. And then, hopefully by God's grace, we have people in our lives who say, I love you. And they do mean it. And we can tell. We know when someone is saying it just to say it, or when they're saying it because they want something from us, right? In the same way, if someone harms you and they apologize, they say, I'm so sorry. Can you tell the difference? When someone really feels badly for what they have said, what they have done, how they have caused you pain, you can tell when they are sincere. And you can tell when they just want you to get over it. When they're just saying, Are, Teek, I'm sorry, chalo yaar, aage badho. You know that just what they're more interested in is ki aap aage badhenge, rather than really diving into themselves in acknowledgement of you as a human being and how they may have harmed you. So if we are capable of that, do you really think that God would give us a capacity that God doesn't have? Of course not. So yes, absolutely, 200%, God knows if we are sincere. We can sometimes be fooled by someone else. God is never fooled. God reads your heart, lives in your heart, feels your heartbeat, knows when your heart is beating for God or not. So yes, absolutely God knows when you're being sincere. And in terms of always chanting one mantra, so there's two pieces here. First of all of our mantras are beautiful. All of our prayers are beautiful. Chant them all. Learn them all. Absolutely. This is why we do, right? Gita Path. We recite the entire Gita. Ramayan Path. We recite the entire Ramayan. Or we listen to the Katha, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The entire Katha. Mahabharat Katha. The entire Mahabharat. There are beautiful Vedic recitations. The Rishi Kumars of our Gurukul recite the Vedas. All day long, they are chanting one mantra after another. So absolutely, learn them, chant them, listen to them. All of them, not just one. And when you sit to do your jap mala, when you sit to do your japa, the power of the recitation of one mantra or one name of God is that it becomes automatic. If you were reciting 30, 40 different mantras, your mind on some level has to be engaged. It has to remember, oh yeah, after this one comes that one. After this is this. This one is next. So the mind gets engaged. We are trying to remember. Or if you are reading, the mind is engaged, you're reading. The mind can even wander when you're reading. When we recite our jap mala and our jap mantra on our mala or not on a mala, one of the really beautiful aspects is that the mind tends to stop. The mind becomes very still and the mantra starts to chant itself. It becomes automatic. So like the breath flows in and flows out whether we are aware of it or not, in the same way the mantra begins to chant itself, whether we are actively chanting it or not. And that's the power of one mantra. So what I would suggest that you have, for example, maybe a special designated time of day that's your jap mantra time. And you do your mala, you do a certain number of malas. And then throughout the day, if you want to be reciting all of the different mantras, no problem, that's beautiful. But allow yourself at least one time a day when you're doing just your jap mantra. And I would suggest even more than one time, but a minimum of one time. Ideally also, though, before you go to sleep. So in the morning and before you sleep. Because when you sleep, then again, that mantra is just chanting itself. And it literally becomes like your breath. So do both. Do a jap mala as a specific practice. And learn as many mantras as you can. And recite them as frequently as you possibly can.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure he appreciates it as well. I'll find out after I ask you the next question. It seems that when we talk of karma, it is referenced only to the individual. Is there a collective karma for a group of people, say a society or a nation of people? And if so, how does that impact the individual's karma?
Beautiful and very, very interesting question.
Timely too.
So each of us has, of course, our individual karma. But remember that individual karma puts us into specific communities. So it may put us into a specific religious community. It may put us into a specific community of race, a specific community of our family. So the smallest community, of course, would be our family. And you could say, does this family have karma? Well, it does, in that each of the members has karma. And that karma has brought all of us together. And so as we come together, it is definitely a situation of the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So the karma in that family is not just the sum of the 4 or 5 or 10 members of that family, but there is absolutely also a family unit karmic package. And in the same way, when we speak about collective karma, we tend to speak about it, for example, and there's usually two different ways, either in terms of a religious group or a racial group. So do people of this race have a different karma than people of a different race? Or a different religion have karma of people of a different religion? Or we tend to speak about it in terms of people who experience the same thing. So 350 people who die in a plane crash together. Did they all have some kind of collective karma? Or all of the people who went down in 9/11, did they have some kind of collective karma? There are ways in which individually and collectively we agree to, because see, karma is not only unidirectional, it's multidirectional. And what I mean by that is that right now, right here, I'm not only reaping the fruits of actions I've done in the past, but I am also planting fruit for the future. And not just my future, but the future of others. And so the choices that I make, some of them may be very conscious, some of them may be unconscious. But there are choices that we make for the future. And I believe when we look also, this happens when we look at children, for example, or other people who pass away too young, too early. And of course, the question is, well, what did he or she do to cause that? Or was it the parents who had some kind of karma to go through that? And the answer is yes, and yes, and yes to all of this. Yes, if we had the ability to step back and to see the full tapestry of that child, of their parents, we would understand. But I also deeply believe that that soul is making a decision to serve in some way as a martyr in order to elevate the consciousness of others. And so, for example, when we experience loss, we come into an experience of awareness and of consciousness that in many cases is much deeper than before we've experienced the loss. And I believe that there are souls that are making these decisions to leave us in certain ways such that we as a society or we as a family may experience greater and higher and deeper consciousness and awareness or purpose. You know, you think about the people who founded, for example, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, due, of course, to the fact of their child being killed by a drunk driver. And yet, the amount of incredible ripple impact that that organization has had on the world. Did the soul of their child choose on some even unconscious level, not conscious, but on some unconscious level, to forego a long life in order to benefit the thousands or millions of children who were saved by being killed by drunk drivers because of the work of that organization? And I actually do believe that. I believe that souls are making choices. that it's not just a reaction. It's not just we did things in the past in different bodies, therefore we're now reaping the effects of that. But that there is a consciousness and an awareness and therefore a power of that soul to make decisions. And so when we speak about a collective karma, I absolutely believe that souls are making choices. And that choice may be to come together. There may be a collectiveness of souls who come together to agree. We are going to be the Jews who were killed in the Holocaust. Not because of something horrible that we did and therefore this is the fruit we are reaping, but because this one unspeakable, unimaginable act has created a culture, a world of so many laws, movements, organizations, initiative, programs to bring people together, to bring about greater harmony, to bring about understanding, tolerance, acceptance, to ensure that nothing like that ever happens again. And so for me, I think of those souls as conscious, making a choice to be part of something like that, to sacrifice a long and healthy life in order to be part of something so powerful that the world, prior and post, are fundamentally different. And to be part of the necessity of that understanding that that can never happen again, and therefore movements. And not only the Holocaust that, you know, Hitler wrought against the Jews in Europe in the 1930s to 40s, but so many of these other Holocausts that we have seen in different countries against different religious groups, against groups of different cultures, different races. I do believe that those people, it's not a matter of, oh, well, they did something wrong and they are receiving the bitter fruit, but rather that they are consciously choosing to be a martyr to the service of new laws, new systems, new programs, new initiatives, a new world order of more peace, more understanding, more love, more acceptance. And also, by the way, remember that as we live our karma, that karma is interwoven with other people's karma. So you can't really, in any case, extricate one from the other. You can't say individual versus collective. My individual karma has made me part of this collective. And so it's yes and yes. Yes, we have the individual. Yes, we have the collective. And yes, the individual has chosen to be, or part of that karmic package is to be part of different collectives, different communities. And remember, lastly, it's not just response to the past or getting the results of the past. It's planting seeds for the future. And in many cases, terror and strife and pain are the most powerful seeds to catalyze the powerful change that we need. Have a beautiful rest of your evening if you are somewhere in the world where it's evening right now. Have a beautiful morning and day if you're somewhere where it's morning and daytime. And looking so forward to being together again with you all. On Monday for our meditation. On Tuesday for our satsang. Same time, same place. And also remember that on Sundays, tomorrow, we have Sacred Sunday, our online satsang that is live on Instagram with the ability for people to come up and to ask questions online as well. And that's just half an hour later. So that starts at 8:30 in the evening in India, 8 o'clock in the morning in California. And look forward to seeing you all there on Instagram as well. And so much love to you all. And deep gratitude to Risha for beginning this beautiful, sacred time together with the divine Shakti of her voice, chanting the mantras and transforming us all on the inside. And deep gratitude to Sevanandaji, to our Risha Kumar Ashish, and the entire beautiful team there at Parmarth for making this possible and bringing us all together, reminding us that we are together and utilizing this great power of technology to be together.